Hey, everybody, welcome to the very first podcast of the Big Pixel channel. We have no name for it yet. We'll get there eventually, I suppose. We have my name is David Baxter. I run this shindig, and we have Gary, who is our Gary Voigt. I should be specific in your name. Say hi, Gary.
Hello, I'm Gary Voigt. I am the creative director inside of Big Pixel.
And we were chatting about business and design stuff, and we thought we might record it and see if anybody cared. That's kind of the goal here. So we want to start out with the first article that came out, not the first one ever. I don't know why I said that. But one thing that's been big this week is Apple changed their fee structure, sort of, kind of, really, not really. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was the Apple Store fees, which sounds exciting, but it's something that most startup people and business people that we talk to regularly have no idea how it works. And I think
How
that's something.
does the Apple Store actually get fees from? Is it from anybody that sells anything
So
through the app?
the way that App Store has been around for 10 years, and it's changed quite a bit in the last few years because they're trying not to get sued and broken up, which is really hot right now. But generally speaking, Apple makes 30% on any digital goods. That's how they make their money. Now, there are tricks to that and caveats that they have introduced over the last few years. If you, for instance, sell a physical good, that's never been a case. So if I'm selling a t-shirt, merchandise, I don't ever lose that money. And that's why Amazon has an app. That's how they work. They don't lose any of the money. But Amazon doesn't sell Kindle books on their app because they don't want to pay Apple 30%. So that is their
Because it's
general.
going specifically through the Apple App Store.
Yeah, if you are going to allow them to buy something, you have to use Apple's payment. And if you use Apple's payment, they say it's worth 30%. It's kind of a funny thing because they're also saying you're also paying for the promotions and stuff like that. But if you're not taking payments, you get that anyway. So it's kind of a game that they play. But generally speaking, if you have a subscription, it's 30% the first year. And the second year, it's 15%. So if you signed up for Netflix, it's $10. Apple would get 30% of that the first year and 15% of the next year. That's how that works now. But then you've got other caveats that, and this matters, but if you're a small business under $1 million in terms of revenue on Apple, you don't pay the 30%, you pay 15%. That's one of their new things they started in March. So again,
Now,
what's that?
let me ask you this. Being a small business, if you're putting a digital product out there, the Apple App Store is probably the one you want to be on, right? Because of the competition between Google Play, unless you're specifically an Android product, and the Apple App Store. I mean, you're going to get more traction through the App Store. Am I correct?
Yeah. If you are building one app, well, we recommend typically most businesses start with hybrid apps, which is a whole different conversation. But if you're only targeting one store, you need to target iOS. And the simple, at least in the US, if you're outside of the US, no, Android is dominant, vastly dominant. But in the US, you need to focus on iOS first. And that's because, generally speaking, iOS people with iPhones, they spend more money than people with Android phones. There's study after study that shows that. So if you're going to sell something, put it on Apple first, see if you get some traction, then go to Android.
Are iPhones still the most popular phone in the US by far?
No, they're about 50%. 50% of phones are iPhones. But if you think about that, there's like 4 phones that contribute to 50% of the market. And then the other 50% is mostly Samsung and then a bazillion different
Smaller
small
companies.
little, well, not even little companies, but companies that are in there. And that's a whole nother tangent. What's interesting, if you talk about the profits, Apple makes like 90% of the profit of all smartphones that are made. Even Samsung doesn't make a whole lot of profit. I mean, they do fine. Don't get me wrong. They're a massive company. But when you talk about percentages, Apple just sucks all the air out of the balloon. But anyway, when it comes to this, what the latest news is that they're now saying reader apps don't have to pay the 30%. They can pay 15%, which is, I'm sorry, not even pay 15%. They can now, for the first time, acknowledge that they have a website and you can sign up for it. But they're being real cagey what that means, which means for the average
So,
person, this doesn't affect you at all. This is purely pandering, in my opinion.
so now if I were to go to the Netflix app on my iPhone and sign up for the subscription or the free service or whatever, After the free service, I decide I want to pay for it. I can do that now through the Netflix app on my iOS device, and Apple will not take money from Netflix, or they're just going to take a lower amount.
So yes and no. Well, right now Netflix has a special deal, or they might have a special deal. I know Amazon has one. It just depends on specifically. But to your point, if you have quote unquote a reader app, which is totally up to Apple to define, but if you have one in the future when this goes into effect, which is supposed to be sometime in 2022, when this goes into effect, you're now allowed to have a button or a link or something that says you can sign up for this service, Netflix being an example. You can sign up for this using our website if you would prefer, which is, again, they don't tell you, they're being cagey about what they're going to allow here. Is it a button? Is it a link? Is it something buried in the terms of service? I don't know. I do know right now, if you push an app out there of any sort, you cannot mention that you have a website at all that has a sign up process. It is against the rules.
So
You will get banned.
Apple does not want you leaving their ecosystem
Correct.
to make
Yeah,
a
that's the whole
purchase or
thing,
a
right? There's a
transaction outside of their app.
big pile of money sitting here, and they want all of it. And they're saying, well, you're on our store, so you should only allow customers to come to our store, which is not fair, not right. This is one of the sticking points I've had developing these apps for the last 8 years. It's you have to thread this needle, which is it's funny because when you create an app nowadays, the back bending you have to do to allow this to happen, and you lose all this marketing stuff. So like right now, what threading the needle is, and a lot of companies do this, is you have an app that is free on the store, and you can sign up for a free account on the app, and you get their email address, and then a day or two later you send them an email that then
They have to sign up on your site
that says,
for the
hey,
rights.
you should sign up on our site, not on Apple, right? Or you can't sign up on Apple or whatever. Here's
So
our
they're
pro
using
plan.
Apple as the introduction through their gigantic app store,
Yeah,
and then trying to pull the customers back into their own specific ecosystem, taking them out of the Apple ecosystem so they don't have to pay all the ridiculous fees just for selling the product.
correct. And that's what small business people have been doing forever. And if you do it wrong, they won't let you on the store. They're very, very good at this. It's very hard to do this. We've done it a couple of times successfully, but it takes a few
Now, if
times.
you have anything built in the app that references this at all, they will kick you out of being into the
Yeah, and
store.
they're really
Correct?
thorough. Like if you put in even a link to your website and that link has a big sign up button on it, no, that won't work. If you have, say you're Netflix, if you're Netflix, you can't mention netflix.com anywhere in your app, which is so silly. You just have to, somehow your person who found the app has to know you have a website, which is where email comes in. But now this new
Now,
thing that they're allowing, quote unquote, for a very small select few types of apps, because they've already said that email clients are not considered reader apps. Which was, if you, there was the Verge article I read about this. There was a controversy earlier about the Hey email app that would still not be allowed in this new agreement. And again, all of this is purely to not get sued into oblivion, or not make the government force them to allow outside payment. Because again, Fortnite, all of that stuff, this is billions and billions of dollars. And if they lose this, and if Fortnite's allowed to put in their own credit card processing, for example, they lose a ton of money. I think in the court process, Apple made them $400 million, which was a chump change for Fortnite. Don't get me wrong, but still, it's $400 million. Take 30% of that. That's Apple's
yeah,
money.
it's a significant enough amount to validate
Sure.
why they were doing it.
Yeah. I mean,
Now,
it's like,
so with this reader apps, you had mentioned to me before, but again, reader apps are just basically an app that references a catalog of other information. You mentioned Netflix and Spotify.
yeah, the definition of a reader app is not fully found yet. They are not.
You said Apple is kind of cagey on what they're going to consider a reader app, but just in general,
In
what is
general, it
a
should
reader
be
app to
something
you?
like Netflix, Spotify, anything that you are just consuming content from their app. Amazon Prime would be one. Any of those streaming apps, that's a reader app. But it's just because they get to define that, you don't get a say in it. It's again, I'm a big believer that Apple should not have this kind of power. They have a monopoly. We can talk about that at some other point, but they are brutal as a developer. It is brutal to play by their rules. It's even when you're small. I mean, 15% is, and let's be clear, 98% of Apple's money comes from people making over $1 million. So by them making that concession, they didn't do anything. They didn't lose hardly anything. No one lost sleep on that one.
Now, you mentioned Apple being a monopoly, or Apple coming in and taking from other people. Another thing Apple does is they watch products that are doing well and then reinvent them in their own ecosystem, like we're seeing with the Zoom and the new Apple OS Monterey, the way they're integrating FaceTime to work almost exactly like Zoom, but with their, Apple's fun little flair.
Yeah, well, and even that is not really much flair, right? In terms of, if I'm a Windows user, I can't create a FaceTime link, right? I can
No, but
join
if you're an
someone.
Apple user and someone sends you a link,
Yeah,
yes, you can do it through the browser, so you'll feel like you're part of the Apple FaceTime thing.
but I
And you
can't
could,
do like a Zoom thing and say, "Hey, I want to talk to my clients through FaceTime, but I'm on a Windows machine. Let me send out a link." I can't do that, right? That's new stuff.
yeah, from what I'm understanding, you have to have either from an Apple device or through an iCloud account.
So, do you think that this change? This is coming in Monterey. I'm not a Mac guy, so it's Monterey is the new one,
Yeah, Monterey is the new operating system.
and this
It should be
FaceTime
out
stuff
this
is coming with
fall.
that.
Yeah, and the FaceTime stuff is coming with not just the new operating system for your desktop or whatever, but it's going to be through iOS, and I think you can even interact through your Apple Watch. I'll double check on that, but
You're saying I can do a
yeah. So they're
FaceTime on my Apple
taking
Watch?
no, you can connect. You could just do the audio part. But if you had 6 or 7 different, let's just use family members, and you were on, a FaceTime and everybody has an iPhone, and then you had a couple other family members that were on Android devices or whatever, they're stuck. They can't join that. So now you could send them a link. They can do it through a browser on the Android device that would link into your iCloud account from whoever sent out the link, and then everybody's using the FaceTime interface through iCloud. So on a business side of this, if you were not a Windows guy but you wanted to connect two people on Mac and Windows and all have that same experience through FaceTime, you just send links out like you would through Zoom.
But why would you? And I'm asking this as a non-Mac guy, but why would you go through all this trouble when I could just set up a Zoom, a free Zoom, right? I mean, do I really want to use my Memoji head that badly? I mean, is that, you see what I'm saying? Is that's what they're
Yes,
hoping?
but no. Well, kind of. The idea is it's when design, as insignificant as it may seem from a broad perspective, like you just said, why would I do that if I could just do a Zoom? Well, why are people doing Zoom now when they could just do a GoToMeeting? Why were people doing GoToMeeting or Zoom when they could just do Microsoft Teams? The idea is, yes, these services are all basically the same. What's different about them, besides a little bit of the technology behind them or how, dependable they are or how popular they are, is the design of them, the design of how you interact with them. Not so much what they look like on your screen, but more of how the experience of you using it with other people is going to tip the scales in favor of the one that is easier, kind of fun and flexible. So that's why Zoom took over from GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting was way too buttoned up and businessy. It was kind of a hard step in, and there was a lot of things you had to do and go through and update through the browser to get it to work. Zoom kind of took care of all of that and made it very simple.
Yeah.
So now what Apple's doing is saying Zoom has a great model on the user experience side, which is design, not necessarily visual design all over, but visual mixed with hardware, which that is one thing Apple is very, very
But
good at,
Apple can't help
mixing the
themselves, right?
experience.
I mean, Zoom came
No,
in and said, "Hey,
they,
what we're going to do is we're going to beat all these guys to the punch with better design in terms of flow and user experience." But Apple, who
right.
is, they're masterful at design and user experience, but they can't help themselves because they still have that big twist, that hook that says if you are not on an Apple device, you are a second-class citizen, which basically means they're going to, by default, their design says I am inferior to Zoom. right? I don't see a way around that.
Or I think Apple's hopes is that, say you're a Zoom user and you get invited to a couple of these FaceTimes instead of Zoom, and you start to really dig the experience. Next time you're going to buy a laptop, maybe you'll
You're going to pay that
consider getting a
$500
Mac
premium.
for this.
I really want that pretty FaceTime. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I think this
I
taps in.
mean, you can make fun of it all you want, but let's look at the company. Let's look at how they market their products. Let's look at the popularity and impact that their products have.
No, it's fair. No,
Yeah.
no one can touch them. I mean, I own every product on Apple except their computers. So I am certainly drinking the Kool-Aid in most instances. But does this tap
Point
into?
being, when we get back to the design part of it, I think they saw a way to pull people back into their Apple ecosystem by copying the use of a popular product. And of course, it became popular because of the pandemic, and everybody's business is going more digital, more streaming now because, face-to-face meetings, brick and mortar stores, that's all kind of falling away, which
So
is another topic we should probably get into is how to, I guess, adjust your business in a pandemic or post-pandemic world.
is there going to be a design trend of 2020, 2021 called pandemic design? I mean, are we already in the midst of that and people are talking about it and I'm just clueless, or is that just where we're going?
That's where we've been going, but it's been amplified by the pandemic. So a lot of products, whether it's just digital products that you've accessed through your phone or on laptop, or websites in general, streaming content, the whole creator economy, all that stuff's been ramping up for the last couple of years.
Sure.
But there was a fire sparked underneath it. Once the pandemic hit, everybody stayed at home. They were consuming everything online. They were buying everything, including groceries. So, of course, all the businesses that sold anything had to adjust for that. And a
Yeah.
lot of adjusting to that is to go to market with a design that's going to show the best case scenario you can for those people that are going to shop online. Like an example would be a grocery store chain we have down here in Florida, and I don't know, they might be in North Carolina too, where you guys are. Publix.
Yeah, we got Publix.
They redesigned the whole online system. They connected with Instacart. As soon as the pandemic hit, next thing you know, you're getting emails from Publix if you were part of their, if you signed up on their website, and you can just go through Instacart through Publix, and you get a little bit of a discount on Instacart if you go through Publix.
So if you're
Next thing you know,
going
hold
with
on, it
that
gets
and
better.
following that, if you're a startup guy, you have an idea, you are a business guy, you already own a business, either way, whichever side of the spectrum, what are the rules to this new pandemic design, for lack of a better term?
You need to be seen online, and you need to be competitive with what's quote unquote trendy. Um, your visual presence, your branding, your marketing efforts, anything that's going to speak about your company needs to look and feel like it's in the present, because there's just so many more businesses putting all the resources into their online presence that ones that look like they're old or out of step are going to kind of fall behind unless they already have a specific niche audience. Now, if you're a software for service company and you already have a gigantic set of users, that's a little different. But if you're coming to market to try to gain more people, you need to update your look.
Well, so it was before, if I was a curmudgeon and websites are silly, I don't need that anymore, right? Those people have been slowly getting schooled and being pushed out of the marketplace. You have to have a website. Now we're saying but for the last few years, it was in a pre-pandemic, a decade or so, is I could have a good in-store experience and an okay online experience, and that was enough. But now the pandemic, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, is the only experience that your customer might have with you now is only online. So now that's an okay online presence ain't going to fly anymore.
Correct. And a lot of the bigger companies that have gone from optimizing in store to, supporting with online presence, who have gone to optimizing online presence, supporting in store presence. In other words, they're expecting you to do your shopping and purchasing online and then maybe go to the store for pickups, returns, questions, things like that. Or if you look online and there's something that you needed to purchase, it's going to be a 3-day delivery time, but there's a store down the street and it's actually in stock. So maybe just go down there and get it. And you're seeing a lot of differences in pricing now. A lot of companies are trying to price things different, where they're optimizing the prices online, giving a little bit of discount for shopping online because they know you are going to have to pay the shipping, but they do not need to employ as many people to service customers in store during the pandemic.
Well, sure, yeah. I
An
mean,
example
now
of
even
that
if
would
it's
be
a
Lowe's.
better price, I might not want to risk it, or I might not want to go to the hassle of dealing with people and masks and all of that in this wonderful world
Plus,
that
these
we're in now.
companies are not able to get all the support, not all the employees that they need to support that. So it's another way of kind of providing a little bit of, I don't know if you would call it insurance or just kind of fortifying your business if it's more sustainable online than it is, in a physical store. It's probably going to be better for you in the long run.
So, changing direction a bit, but I'm going to keep the through line of the pandemic here because really, what else are we going to talk about? How is this? I mean, we already seen it, but entertainment, and this is just for me because I'm a big movie nerd. How does entertainment change permanently, not just temporarily, but how does entertainment change from the pandemic? I'm curious what your
In
thoughts are. What does it
my
look like
yeah, my
5 years from
opinion
now?
is, in my opinion, well, we've seen it change immensely just over the last 5 years prior to the pandemic because of things like the streaming culture, creator economy, whatever you want to call it. Um, influencers, the whole thing where you're literally walking around with a device that you can consume entertainment on almost all day, unless you're asleep.
Yeah,
So the pandemic did emphasize how you're going to get your entertainment through streaming rather than going to a theater, rather than going to, like, concerts are not really a thing anymore. Live music is coming back, but at the same time, once people started staying indoors, the consumption of video and audio content online had to go through the roof. I
sure.
mean, now you have movie theaters are barely sustainable, but
Hmm.
production companies are pushing through premiering movies through the streaming programs, whether it's HBO Max, Disney Plus, whatever. Oh, that leads into the Black Widow versus Disney,
Yeah, she's
with how
the
actors not
cinema.
getting paid for quote unquote box office because it wasn't released in a physical theater.
Well, in 5 years, that's what I'm curious. I mean, once this all dies down and we can all take our masks off and we can go to the theaters, will people go to the theaters? My
I think,
prediction, for what it's worth, is they won't, except for big, huge movies like an Avengers or something. But if I'm just
yeah, I
watching a
think
rom
theaters might
com,
have to step up. They might have to step up the, uh, I guess you can call it specialized entertainment for specific events rather than depending on weekly releases of new movies to keep them, afloat.
but and then the question is to because I'm not going to pay $50 to go to the theater for a rom com. I'm going to watch on HBO Max or Disney or whatever. But now, do those movies make enough money for those streaming so that they get made, or do we only fall down this hole of everything's Marvel and everything explodes, which is where we've
Yeah,
been
no, that's
going currently?
interesting. Yeah, because if the production company's not seeing the return with the box office money, because obviously when they release something streaming, they're not getting the hit of, like, $200 million first day, blah blah blah.
Yeah, you don't get
So
that
yeah,
prep.
they're going to be cutting down production costs quite a bit, and which is, ooh, that's crazy too, because the cost of CGI and the use of CGI is going up too. So
Yeah, I
this will
mean,
lead
it
into,
doesn't get
maybe
cheaper just because the
maybe
streaming's more.
we'll have Tesla robots just as actors.
Oh, don't get me started on the Tesla robots. That's a whole different thing. But
But speaking of releases in theaters, just real quick, the new Marvel movie that just came out, the Shang-Chi and the Ten
that hadn't
Rings,
come
like
out yet,
they
man. Don't
filmed,
tease me. That hadn't come out yet.
okay, it was filmed specifically only for IMAX, for an IMAX release. That was Disney's plan all along, just to only release it in IMAX theaters.
No way.
Yep.
Really?
From
Dude,
what I understood, it was specifically made to be released in IMAX theaters only.
I love
And
a
I
good
think
IMAX.
they might have lost that gamble. They took a gamble on that, and
Well, but I mean, does it really
unfortunately,
affect the
not
movie?
everybody.
I mean, the movie's not going to be
No, no,
worse.
it only affects what they expected to rake in box office weekend.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I've seen very few IMAX movies because they're just not around me. But I did see. Gosh, I'm going to date myself here. I saw Matrix 2, which is I don't recommend anyone seeing, but I did see it in IMAX, and I will tell you, to see Keanu Reeves' head 2 stories is intense. That's intense. That's a lot of pores. That's all I'm saying. Like, he can't grow a beard, and it's very clear he cannot grow a beard when you're that big. It's not.
Now, was it real Keanu or was it CGI Keanu?
Well, I can't tell the difference. Neither can
Some
act,
artist has to go in and put every single pore onto his skin with a little weight contact.
And they should, because that would end up with a better acting than Keanu can actually do. Actually, Keanu seems like a really amazing human. Anytime he opens his mouth, I don't enjoy it, which is why his best movies have him not talking. John Wick being a clean one. I'm a huge John Wick fan, but I think
we're off on a tangent.
Absolute random tangent. I think it's time to wrap this guy up for our very first edition. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and hopefully you'll subscribe and come back for more. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks.
We'll get better at this. We promise.
We will. We hope to. Yeah, that's right.